Okay, so you're a lawyer, right? And you know how much mileage there is in that phrase. It depends. Well, Elon Musk's latest move has legal experts saying exactly that, trying to figure out if this is a loophole or a legal landmine.
The interesting thing is how the whole thing comes down to a couple of words. In the US code, that is. Words like expenditure and influence. And as you know, those words can be interpreted in many ways.
You'd say that again. And there's been a lot of debate about this new Musk situation, so we're going to dive into this BBC article about it all. Because we don't mess around, we're going straight to the source. 18 U.S. Code, Section 597. It's all about expenditures to influence voting. But before we get into the weeds, let's do a quick review of what Mr. Musk is up to. The BBC article came out just a few days ago, and it says that tech billionaire Elon Musk has said he will give away £766,000 a day to a registered voter in key swing states until the U.S. presidential election on 5 November. $1 million every single day until the election. Talk about incentive. But of course, there's a catch. The winner will be chosen at random from those who sign a pro-U.S. Constitution petition by Mr. Musk's campaign group America PAC, which he set up to support Republican nominee Donald Trump's bid to return to the White House.
Okay, so that's where things start to get interesting for lawyers like us. 18 U.S. Code Section 597 makes it super clear that it's against the law to make or offer to make an expenditure to any person, either to vote or withhold his vote or to vote for or against any candidate. So the question is, does Musk's giveaway count as an expenditure under the law?
Because he's not saying, give me your vote and I'll give you $1 million, right?
Yeah.
It's more like, sign this petition, which just so happens to support my favorite candidate, and you might win some money.
Yeah, and that's what makes this so interesting from a legal perspective. This Rick Hasen guy, he's an election law expert at UCLA Law School, and he's saying that this whole thing is clearly illegal, and his argument is all about intent. Even if Musk isn't literally buying votes, the way he set this whole thing up, giving it to registered voters in swing states, it just looks like he's trying to influence people's votes.
I've got an analogy for you. What if I offered everyone $1 million to wear red on the day of the Super Bowl? But only if my team is playing in the Super Bowl, and my team's colors just happen to be red. Is that influencing the outcome of the game?
I like it. And there's more. The article says that people who sign this petition must submit their contact details, potentially allowing America PAC to contact them about their vote.
So we're not just talking about a one-time giveaway here. This is about building a database so they can send targeted messages to these voters.
That's right. And Hassan says that this is what pushes it over the line. They're building a database of people who might be receptive to Trump's message, and they can use that to target those voters.
So even if Musk says, we're not breaking the law, signing a petition isn't voting, they can still be in trouble because they're influencing people behind the scenes.
Exactly. And this is where it gets really tough. Because how do you prove intent in a court of law? How can you measure how much influence $1 million a day actually has on an election?
Especially in an election where there's so many other things going on. Speaking of things that are hard to prove, legal standing. This is where it gets really interesting for our lawyer listeners.
Yeah, because even if there are concerns about what Musk is doing, who has the right to sue him over it? To have legal standing, you need to prove that you were directly harmed by his actions, not just that you're worried about what might happen.
I guess that means some random person on the street can't just sue, even if they live in a swing state and they're eligible for this giveaway. So what about other people running for president? Can they sue because they feel like Musk is putting them at a disadvantage?
Now we're talking. Other campaigns could definitely argue that this giveaway is basically a campaign contribution, an illegal one, and they could say that it's creating an unfair advantage for Trump.
So they'd be arguing that Musk is trying to buy the election, not by buying votes directly, but by using his money to drown out other voices.
Right, but that means they'd have to prove that they were actually harmed by all of this. That's a key part of proving standing.
So they couldn't just say, well, our campaign isn't doing very well. They'd have to prove that their struggles are because of what Musk is doing.
Exactly. They would have to prove that it's not because of other things, like how popular the candidate is, or what the media is saying about them, or how many people are voting in general. Even the economy could be a factor.
Wow, that sounds incredibly difficult to prove. This makes you wonder if a court could even make a decision about this before the election is over.
That's where this idea of mootness comes into play. If the election happens and then the court case is still going on, the court could just say, well, it doesn't matter anymore, the election is over, even if someone had a strong case. The whole thing could get thrown out on a technicality.
That's crazy. Okay, so let's set aside the legal stuff for a second, because there's a bigger question here. Even if what Musk is doing is technically legal, is it the right thing to do? We'll get into that right after this quick break.
It's like he's found a way to exploit the letter of the law, but is he violating the spirit of it? That's the real question, isn't it?
It is. And it's not just about Musk and this election, is it? This whole thing feels much bigger.
It is bigger. It's about free speech. It's about campaign finance rules. And it's about how much power billionaires should have in our elections.
And it's about finding the right balance between all of those things, right?
Exactly.
So Musk and America PAC could say, hey, we're just exercising our First Amendment rights, we're supporting a candidate, and we believe in these causes.
Right. And on the surface, they're not breaking the law.
Not technically, at least.
But then you've got people like Hasten saying that this is clearly an attempt to get around campaign finance laws.
And the timing of it all is just so suspicious, don't you think? I mean, come on, a few weeks before the election.
It does make you wonder about their true intentions.
It really does.
And even if what Musk is doing is legal, what kind of message does this send to other billionaires? Are we going to see more of this kind of thing in the future?
It feels like we're in uncharted territory here.
Ugh.
Especially with social media and online fundraising changing the game so much.
It's a whole new world, and our laws might not be ready for it.
It's like we need to hit the reset button. We need a way to make sure everyone has a fair shot. And to prevent elections from becoming a bidding war among billionaires.
That's the million-dollar question, all right, and I think it's one that's going to be debated for a long time.
Okay, so let's say Musk is trying to influence the election. Does it even work? We can argue about the legal and ethical stuff all day long. But if the voters don't buy it, then what's the point?
It's a question that political scientists have been studying for years. How much does campaign spending really influence voters? And the answer is, it's complicated.
So Musk could be spending millions of dollars for nothing.
It's definitely possible, because voters aren't robots. They don't just blindly follow the money.
So what are some of the other factors that influence voters?
It's a whole mix of things. Their personal values, their beliefs, their economic situation, and how they feel about the candidates, of course.
And don't forget about the media.
Oh, absolutely. The media plays a huge role. And social media, too, of course.
And then there are those October surprises. You know, those unexpected events that always seem to happen right before an election.
Right. Those can really shake things up.
So even with all of his money, there's no guarantee that Musk can actually control the outcome of this election.
And that's actually kind of reassuring, isn't it?
It is.
It means that even in this day and age, voters still have the power.
And that's what democracy is all about. So let's talk more about this idea of standing, because I think it's important for everyone to understand, not just lawyers.
I agree. Knowledge is power.
Exactly.
So let's say you're a voter in a swing state. You're eligible for Musk's giveaway, but you think it's wrong and you want to do something about it.
What would you need to do to take him to court?
Well, it's not enough to just say, I don't like what he's doing, or this doesn't seem fair.
Right. You'd have to convince a court that you've been personally harmed by this giveaway.
Exactly. And that's not always easy to do.
So could a voter argue that Musk's giveaway makes their vote less important?
Interesting argument. Could they say that their vote doesn't matter as much now because Musk is throwing so much money around?
It's an interesting thought, but I'm not sure if a court would agree.
Yeah, it would be a tough case to make. Remember, Musk isn't picking the winner based on who they're voting for. It's random. So it's hard to prove a direct link between the giveaway and any harm to a specific voter.
Okay, so if it's not an individual voter, who else could try to sue?
This is where it gets interesting. Other campaigns or political groups might have a stronger case.
How so?
Well, they could argue that Musk is giving Trump an unfair advantage, that he's tilting the playing field.
So they'd be saying, hey, we can't compete with that kind of money.
Exactly. They could argue that it's hurting their ability to reach voters, or to raise money, or even just to run a normal campaign.
But they'd have to prove it, right?
Oh, absolutely. They'd need hard evidence.
Like what?
They'd have to show how Musk's actions have directly impacted their campaign.
So not just that their campaign is struggling.
Right. They'd need to connect the dots. Show that it's because of Musk, not something else.
It sounds like it would be really hard to separate Musk's influence from everything else that happens in an election.
You're right. It's a complex issue, and that's what makes these cases so challenging and fascinating.
They really highlight the gray areas of the law.
They do, and they raise so many questions about money and politics, about campaign finance laws, about fairness in elections.
It's a lot to think about, but I think it's important that we do think about it.
I agree.
Because this isn't just about Elon Musk and a petition. It's about the future of our democracy.
That's right.
It's about making sure that everyone has a voice, not just the billionaires.
Well said.
And that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Thanks for joining us as we explored the legal maze of campaign finance, loopholes, and the power of a really expensive petition. Until next time, remember that knowledge is power. The more we understand these complex issues, the better equipped we are to make a difference.